Yo, what is good YouTube? And in this video, I'm gonna show you how I've gotten so much better in terms of on-ball defense in NBA 2K23. Definitely an underrated part of the game if you're playing the 5-on-5 game mode such as my team and not necessarily defending in the rec. Although these tips will also help you in the one-on-one situations in my career, park, rec, or any of those game modes as well. As good as AI defense is, there's no substitute for good on-ball defense in order for you to stop a lot of the meta moves in NBA 2K23. And sometimes even though you play as good a defense as you can, sometimes it's just like that. Players are too good, some animations conk out, but what's important is that you trust the defensive process and make sure that you're defending according to the correct principles. Okay, so my first tip is to go into controller settings and try to tweak your defensive assist strength. My preference personally is to stick it at default, which is 50, and this allows me to enter into a lot of ride and bump animations in NBA 2K23. Now, the first mistake you're doing in NBA 2K23 while playing on-ball defense is constantly holding R2, which results in a lot of, twitchy, fast, and sliding movements which will always put you on the defensive because you're always trying to correct the overreaction that you initially made. Which leads me to mistake number 2 on defense, and as you can see right here, it's a lot of overreactions on my end. This guy was cooking me with a lot of leaners, a lot of Yao paint mashing, and it put me in a bad defensive position. Take a look at my Jason Tatum here. I'm sliding around, sprinting, jumping at everything, and this allowed my defender to easily take advantage and score with an easy bucket. So now that you have your defensive assist set to where you want, you'll want to hold L2 and enter a defensive stance and make measured left stick movements and try not to overreact. As you can see right here, I'm making a lot of quick measured movements just holding L2 and moving the left stick around to put myself in a good position to contest. Just take a look at my movements here. No matter which animation he tries to put on me, such as the Curry slide, I'm not overreacting. I'm taking measured steps to make sure that I defend and contest correctly. Okay, mistake number 3 is using the right stick hands up defense while guarding laterally, and what this will do is that when you're holding the right stick up in order to contest and move at the same time, it actually slows down your defense and allows your opponent to quickly burst and beat you laterally. Alright, so take a look at this full defensive possession right here. We're not overreacting to anything. We have enough space between us and the basket in order to contest and guard accurately, and once our defender was boxed, he had to give a bad pass which led to an interception, and our opponent threw himself out of the play by overreacting on defense, allowing us a wide open lane to the basket. So once again, just by holding L2 and making sure that we're in good positional defense, not throwing ourselves out of the possession, we're able to adjust moderately using the left stick just enough without holding R2 to stay in position, and as our opponent throws himself out of the play by overreacting, a simple burst towards the basket gets us an easy bucket. Tip number 2 may seem obvious, but getting in front of your defender results in body up and contact animations, which is hinted by using the new shading indicator, which is exclusive to NBA 2K23 Next Gen. Those are those 3 zones right there inside the circle indicator. When each zone is lit up green, you're able to blow by your defender, but as you can see right there, a red zone will lead to a clamp animation. So don't follow your defender, always make sure to beat them to their spot. So my third tip is to not follow your defender. Always try to beat them to their spot using your knowledge of patterns and animations to help anticipate how to stop your defender. So in this next clip, my opponent tries to post me up and spin towards the baseline. I wait for the animation cue that tells me he's going baseline, and then while holding L2, I'm just moving the left stick gently towards the baseline in order to cut him off. Look at my left stick movements right here. They're small movements that allows us to defend our opponent very well and make sure that we don't overreact. Okay, tip number 4 is initiating contact or bump animations will help you get easier steals. So this is one of the meta speed boost moves that pull back dribble, and take a look at the zone where the shading mechanic is lit red towards the right. So I head towards the right, get that bump, and tap square as I get that contact animation, gives us an easy steal and gets us an easy bucket. Same situation here after the behind the back dribble, take a look at where the defensive zone lights up. After T-Mac initiates that behind the back dribble going to the right, just take a look at the shading indicator here. It's lit towards the right, so I initiate a bump by blocking his T-Mac's direction going to the right and initiating a steal after that contact. Alright, so this is another example of me putting everything together from our first few tips. Not overreacting, holding L2, beating our defender to the spot, and using knowledge of patterns and animations to know what our defender will do and try to anticipate by playing good positional defense. So on the defensive side of the ball, my philosophy is to stay disciplined, try not to overreact, and make sure that you're making the right kind of movements and not putting yourself out of the play. As you can see right here, everyone goes to that speed boost pullback, which is easy to anticipate if you know what you're looking for, and unfortunately I wasn't able to cut him off, but the help defense was right there. Next is you want to study patterns from your opponent, and my opponent right here telegraphs his favorite combo, which is 3 dribble moves into a speed boost, which he does immediately right here. After that third dribble move, he immediately goes into a speed boost, and I'm able to cut him off because of my knowledge of what he wants to do. What he's doing is he's using those different setups to try to mask what he really wants to do, and that's a simple crossover speed boost. Again, he does all of this nonsense right here. After he stops, he immediately goes into a crossover, so anticipating that steal was so easy. My fifth tip is to defend the back line of defense in transition. So here I controlled Kevin Garnett and made sure that I guarded the corners and the back cuts, and then proceeded to switch on to the on-ball defender and clamp my opponent immediately. In transition, offenses will immediately go towards a straight line to the basket to collapse the corners, so make sure that your back line of defense is immediately set up. So here I'm using Jason Tatum first, making sure I'm guarding the basket in case of a back cut, but I was already drifting towards the corner to guard Blake Griffin, and then switched on ball to stop the penetration. Now an important tip on 5-on-5 game modes is to not switch on ball immediately after your opponent passes to another teammate. Offenses usually take advantage of that split second in which you switch on ball and attack you with penetration immediately. So take a look at this possession right here. I clamp up Lauri Markkanen pretty easily, which leads him to pass to Draymond Green, and I switch on to Billy Knight. But as I do, I'm caught flat-footed, and Draymond immediately uses that sort of lag in switching towards your next teammate and attacks with penetration. Fortunately, I'm able to recover and guard to the 3-point line pretty quickly, but it was a mistake on my end. So in certain situations, you want to use sprint, either by holding L2 and R2 or just by holding R2. Only when you are trying to recover on defense when you're beat pretty quickly, try to cut them off at the point where they want to attack and try to defend that way. Take a look at this defensive possession where our knowledge of animations from Damian Lillard allows us to stay positionally disciplined, moving the left stick and holding L2 only at the right pace in order to keep in front of Dame. But sometimes, man, offenses are just too good. My opponent here uses contact very well and initiates a step back, and even though we had him clamped, his knowledge of contact and the step back animation gives him a wide open shot. So again, our opponent here uses the freeze hezi to an immediate attack, but again, our knowledge of positional defense allows us to recover quickly. Instead of following our defender, we cut him off at the baseline and get an 8% contest instead of a wide open layup, which was enough to give us that contest and allow him to miss that layup. Same theme right here, although KD is executing a lot of size up animations, we don't overreact. Just a quick forward step allows us to move laterally very quickly and recover on defense. Okay, my last tip is to shade your defender always towards help defense. There will be certain situations where you'll have to give up certain spaces on the floor, but always make sure that you're leading your defender towards help defense. So here I overreact by cutting off the left side of the court because there's no one there to help if we get beat. But then we shade him towards the right and bring him towards help defense, and our back line of defense was in the right position in order to stop penetration and get that steal. Once again, there's no help on the left side of the floor. KG is at the corner. We shade him towards Glenlyres on the right. And just by using that positional defense, the knowledge of how to send our opponent towards the help side of defense will be enough to stop a lot of penetration. So take a look here, again, staying disciplined positionally. Help defense was on the left side, which made Ricky Davis stop. Step back, close out on that step back so he doesn't take a wide open 3. But now we're shading our opponent towards Glenlyres, allows us to recover and get that timely block. So these are a lot of the defensive principles that I really try to implement by going on-ball defense almost 100% of the time in one of the cheesiest game modes in NBA 2K23. So if you've played my team, it becomes increasingly difficult to defend on ball precisely because everyone is so juiced. You can't really take away anything specifically. But as I showed you here, playing on-ball defense is definitely possible if you challenge yourself on the sticks and challenge yourself by trying to learn how to defend. And believe me, trust yourself, put yourself in that process, and you'll get much better playing defense in NBA 2K23.